Got it. All right. Well, welcome again, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Our main question here, what brings us is to look at how we can use corpus tools and then develop vocabulary activities by just taking texts that you have and putting them into computer software and getting a group of getting data from there and then using that data for creating activities. So the first step in doing all this, of course, is to find texts.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I know it's really hard to be doing slides for someone else. And usually finding text is the easy part. That's usually where you're teaching a class, you know that you want some text about a particular topic or with other goals in mind. And then you wonder, what do I do now that I have these texts? Because there's all kinds of vocabulary and grammatical forms there that I want to have students be able to practice and become familiar with, but how do I even know which ones are most important? Do I just read through them and kind of guess? But corpus tools really allow you to more systematically determine what vocabulary and what grammatical patterns you should be focusing on with this group of texts. So Margie and I talked, what kind of text do we think our beginners, our imaginary beginners might need to look at? And we're very interested in food security and health. And so we decided that that would be our corpus for the purposes of our workshop today. But just keep in mind that no matter what class you're teaching, you can create your own corpus with just a group of texts. You want to make sure that you have enough text that you're going to get enough information, enough vocabulary out of it. But really, you can just go from whatever is already fitting into your curriculum. Sometimes instructors do this with a novel. They might assign just a beginner level novel, or it could be a group of articles that you find online, like Margie did. So you find your texts. Margie and I did that behind the scenes. Our next step was to use AntConc to find highly frequent words and phrases. And if you're interested in seeing what that step looks like, you are welcome to join us for a future Corpus Corner. We meet typically every last Friday of the month from 12 to 1. We're skipping March because of TESOL. So please feel free to join us in April or May or whenever you get a chance, and we would be happy to walk you through those steps in AntConc. But today we're just going to be sharing with you what came out of AntConc when we put our text into it. And then we're going to have lots of time to do those activities here in our workshop. So that's the next step. Margie, if you want to.
Do you want to show the results, or do you want everyone to just go on their own?
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and we can share it. So in the chat, you should have a link that will take you to a couple of different places. So I'm not sure if Margie, you can get out of the slides to show them our messy data, or so this is what our results look like at first. When we created a word list, all of the words that were in all of our texts. So you see words like and, to, the, other, from, what. This was we calling this our messy data, because this is not the list that we're actually going to work from. Our students, we've decided, know the, at, in, and we don't need to focus on those. So from this messy list of words, we created our nice, neat, we're going to work with this list. Mm-hmm. And that one is in the chat. You are welcome to open it and to work with it as we create activities. Margie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to show that. I just wanted to let them know that we were also using these data right here, which were bundles. So we looked at individual words, we looked at some collocations, and some other things. Yeah, and then I'll go ahead and I'll open the word list that we created from all this.
Yeah, so with AntConc, you can find not only what are the most frequent words in order of frequency, but you can also find lexical bundles, you can find collocates. So this word list that we've given to you is really the most frequent words and also the words that we think are important to be teaching and practicing with the students. And so on the left-hand column there, you have the individual word. And in the right-hand column, you've got some phrases with that word. So health, often collocated with mental problems and risk. And so having that on the list, then when you create your list, you can use that list to create your activities. And say, oh, you know, I see that in the text, they're often going to be reading not just rich, but foods that are rich in. So that's the type of activities I'm going to be presenting to the students so they can be seeing those phrases again and again, or those collocations again and again.
Yeah, and we added a few just to let you know that weren't maybe the most frequent, but they seemed important to help students understand the readings.
Right. And so again, you know, this is really a personal decision, what words you're going to put onto your list and focus on. But of course, whether you put them on your list or not is highly informed from who your students are, what their level is, what their goals are. But yeah.
You could also easily, some of these are pretty hard at the end. You know, if that's too high, you just change the readings a little bit so that the students aren't going to get tripped up by those words.
Right. Yes.
Videos. Yeah.
So if you wanted to open up that word list before we put you into breakout rooms, you still have a few minutes, but go into the chat and it's the link that says word list first, and then there's a link underneath word list. So that would be the one to open. And it would be good to have that up on your computer so that when you are in your groups and creating these activities together, you know what vocabulary to be drawing from.
Okay. So yes, then the magic occurs where you create your activities.
Yes. So before we send you out into breakout rooms, we had just a few thoughts to share with you on, you know, as you're creating these activities, some things to be keeping in mind. And Margie, if you want to go to the next slide.
Right, I'm just admitting people. Sorry.
Oh yes, admit away, please. That's important. Oh yes, but yes, one last. That's right. So keeping in mind that learners need a number, and that number it's not a set number, but typically we say 10 or more conscious passes at a word in order to really know and retrieve the word. So you know, it's not just if a student sees a word one time, they haven't learned the word. First of all, they need to see it again and again, but also they need to see it in different contexts and perhaps in different grammatical structures or in the company of other word friends. So it's important to be showing them lots of different examples with that. So if you have an activity where you're using the same words again and again, that is great. That is what your students want and need. So as you are brainstorming activities with your group, draw on that list of words and phrases that we put in the chat, and think about what activities you would create for your lower proficiency level students. So think about increasing familiarity with the word, introducing the word, then doing some controlled practice with different skills, then guided practice, communicative practice. Think about meaning, you know, making sure that they understand the meaning, perhaps in different contexts, part of speech, working perhaps on word families, and also on collocates, what collocates typically are attracted to the vocabulary word. So those are some things to keep in mind. And then
Yeah, and think about colic, it's not just as other lexical items, but also kind of grammatical environment, right?
Yes, exactly. Are there prepositions that tend to be paired with this noun, for example?
It's important to do something. It is important for children to do something, you know, things like that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we did a quick brainstorm of all the different types of activities that you might think about. You might have some matching, some fill in the blank, sentence completion, multiple choice, highlighting words in the text, short answer questions, list making, Pictionary, dictation, role play, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there are tons of things. So these are planting seeds in the hopes that they will create some light bulb moments for you. And we're going to put you now into groups to work on as many activity ideas as you want. We only have until 1 o'clock, so we don't expect finished products ready to be, presented, but at least the beginnings of some ideas would be great. And if you want to type some things up, that's fantastic too, but don't feel like you have to.
And then of course, we'll give you some yummy things at the end, just to take away. But again, I don't teach lower level students very often anymore. And so I'm pretty out of practice with what one might do with lower levels. So we're actually looking to all of you. I think that the goal here is to see that you can get quite a bit out of a document like this and all the things that you could do. And if you do enough passes, even though some of that is pretty high level, I still think you can get your students with enough repetition to really start sounding right. And it may not be that this is what you want to do. It could be more of a notional functional thing of going to the doctors, or, there are all sorts of texts that you can use, both oral texts and written texts. But we just use this because, it's what we know and what we do. I was going to go ahead and put us maybe just into 2 different groups, and Nicole will go into one and I'll go into the other, and we'll all work together on some ideas. So be sure to kind of grab these links and have your stuff open. And then we're going to just go for maybe, 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes to see what all of you might come up with given this word list. And then we'll come back together, share what we found, and look at some activities that we've created, although that doesn't make them in any way better than the ones that you're about to think about on your own. Because again, I'm really out of practice with this whole lower level thing. So here we go. Ready? I'm going to open up 2 breakout rooms. I'm going to just assign us, Nicole, I'll go to the room that you don't go to. How's that?
Okay, sounds good.
Well, maybe I should make you a co-host. How about if I make you a co-host?
Okay.
I don't think you go to a room.
That way I can.
Just give me a second. I have so many tabs open right now. I'm struggling just a little bit to remember how to do this. Right? Okay. Co-host. Okay. There we go. All right, should have done that earlier. All right, I'm going to go ahead now and create the rooms. Okay, have a wonderful time. I'll see some of you in just a second. And the others, I'll go ahead and we'll catch up with you a little bit later.
Okay, so Margie, I'm going to go ahead and join room 2.
Okay.
We all got muted and we lost Margie. Oh, there you are, Margie.
I'm here. I'm back. Hi. Sorry about that. I just, I hope that you got a little warning saying that we were going to come back. I hope that you all had a nice conversation with your group. And I guess maybe first we want to do a little shout out. Does anyone want to share anything that your groups came up with that that you wanted to mention as maybe, you know, something creative, something different, something you hadn't expected to hear about today? Oh, you're like my class yesterday. And no, it's hard with the whole group, but is anyone willing to share anything out?
I'll share.
Thanks.
Robin had kind of inspired this idea. I remembered a colleague, she did a class cookbook, and Nicole kind of framed it as like an end project. So if we worked towards that end project, and then maybe they ended up doing a potluck with the recipes that they put in that class cookbook, that could be kind of a neat 2 or 3 week project. So we could use some of the activities that we came up with to introduce the vocabulary, practice the vocabulary, and then maybe end up writing some recipes and then sharing those and making it kind of a community building activity as well. So maybe we would do something like that. We talked about several different activities we could do with the vocabulary words.
I also love the idea that, because sometimes, you know, cookbooks will have a theme, and so this one could be, you know, the healthy diet theme, and then they could write a little passage for each recipe about why it's good for their kids, right?
Absolutely.
Richin, we got caught up with Richin. That was one that we were talking about a lot. Yeah, great. Well, that's a great activity. Anybody else have anything you want to talk about right now?
I like how Ryan shared that using rock, paper, scissors to create this really fun, active atmosphere of like reviewing vocabulary. I think that would just increase like the excitement in the class.
How does that work?
It's a game we used to play in Japan. You have your desks kind of set up in a U shaped, and then you have 2 lines at the end, and you have your flashcards on the tops of the desk. So the student at the beginning of the lines will start reading the cards on the desk, and when they meet, they do paper, scissors, rock, and the winner keeps going. You know, the goal is to get to the other side, and then the next student in that line starts reading the words, and and hopefully he'll win, and then that student will keep going. And it's a way to we used it for sight words and just being able to see a word and say it, and they end up going so fast that you have to slow them down so that because they really, and I've used it with some adult classes, but I haven't used it with my current class. And in the past, you know, some of them, it just depends upon what the vibe is like in the class and if they know each other well, but it can be a really fun game and a neat way to be able to kind of see a word, say a word, and I don't know, it's fun. I'll try it, I'm sure.
You know, Ryan, I wish I had heard this from you, whatever, 5 years ago when I was teaching my son to read, because he would not sit down. And I had to come up with strategies for teaching reading to someone who was running at the same time. And I came up with a few, but I didn't think of this one. And so I think it would be also great for kids, for literacy, beginning literacy, all kinds of groups. I love that idea.
We just did one though in class, Margie, that I liked, and we're doing a unit on home, and so introducing all the vocabulary about furniture in the different rooms of the house. And so just this week, as kind of a get up out of your seat activity, I had a picture of a living room, for example, and then a couple teams, and we have whiteboard space. So the teams needed to write 10 items that they would find in that room, and then the first team to get to 10, you know, would win. We get a point, and then we move on to the bathroom, and then we move on to the bedroom. And so that was a neat way for them to kind of recall the vocabulary. They could look at their notes too, and it's, you know, they had to spell it correctly. And then we then went to the computer lab, and they wrote about their home. So these activities, they all kind of compound, and it was a neat sequence.
Right. Like we were talking about various ways. John brought some stuff up, as did others, of like rich in vitamin C, and then you pick all the, what are, right, 5 things that are rich in vitamin C, right? And you could do it with flashcards. We were talking about flashcards and moving, putting things into piles, but you could also have them listing stuff on the board, right? Getting them up out of their seats, right? And hearing the term rich in. Yeah. Anybody else want to share anything from the groups? Okay.
We have a couple of things to share as well.
Yeah. Yes, I was going to say, do you want me to share some things?
Yeah.
Okay. I know, like, we talked a little bit about, we talked about a number of really great things, including, I really did like, I think it's important. We talked about kind of the reading aloud and thinking about thought groups and teaching, if you're teaching the vocabulary in lexical bundles, then teaching the prosody along with all of that, the stress, the intonation, et cetera. So all of that, we really want to think about that. I'm going to just share some things that we came up with. These are, again, nothing stellar, just like all the things that I came up with in just, that we came up with in just looking at these words, right? So, teaching bundles from the start. So I would always, junk food or likely to or something instead of, you could do just, if you want, you could do just nouns, just verbs, if, it's too much, but this is just just assessing their background knowledge. What do they know? What do they not know? What words seem familiar? If this is too much, maybe putting some, just a smaller list to help out with their confidence level, that you don't want them to have too many minuses, right? Or they start kind of freaking out. And you could also do it, this could be changed up into some sort of oral activity as well, if you wanted. Of course, investigating word families. And I just thought, as I was doing this, there's like this interesting difference. Sorry, having a little trouble with the way that my computer is acting up. Okay. So healthy, active, hungry, important. If you think about some of the adjectives, it's it's unhealthy but inactive, right? And so you get a little bit of a prefix activity there if you want, right? So filling in, what are the verbs, what are the adjectives, nouns, not making it too very difficult, but really getting them to see that. Again, we talked in my group a little bit about this, but like giving them lists of words or it could be more kinesthetic, but right, what are foods that are good sources of vitamins and nutrients, or good sources of vitamin C, or having them put stuff into the food groups, or modifying, you'll see at the bottom, if you really want to push them, right, whole grain bread, lean meat, low fat milk, skinless chicken. You can decide how far you want to take that, right? And getting them to talk about what's healthy and what's in the readings, right? Because all of the readings talk about, and the videos do in fact talk about things like, whole grain bread as opposed to white bread, right? So they're really pushing that, right? There might be a lot to argue about with eggs and cheese, right? Healthy, not healthy. Cereal, pasta, and bread, right? Just, depends on what cereal, what pasta, what bread, right? So you could get into some negotiation there, right?
And what culture.
And what culture,
Yeah.
right. Again, kinesthetic, right? You could do like even a 4 corners kind of thing, like for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, as a snack, right? When is your family most likely to eat? And then, yogurt, this, and then Nicole and I had a good time talking about, I tend to eat eggs for dinner a lot, so I might like ruin everybody's, right? Or some people may have a lot of trouble, right? Like soup, right? There are lots of cultures that do in fact have soup for breakfast, right? Whereas that's not seen as common here, right? Or putting things on a continuum. So having people put themselves in a line, right? From who has the healthiest diet to who has the least healthy diet, and they have to negotiate to kind of find their space in the line, right? Or again, with flashcards and having them ask them to put things on a continuum, right? Just that idea of having, and then you get to teach healthy and healthier and healthiest, and why is there an I, right? and that kind of thing, if you want to go there, right? Depending on what you're teaching, right? And how far you want to take it. Obviously, collocations, right? You can have them match, like which of these words matches with food, which of these words comes after health, which comes after whole, right? And just having them match. You can have them, which one of these is not quite right, right? Food choices is fine, food labels are fine, food groups, food junk, no, it's junk food, right? Now they might know that one, but I'm just saying, right, as an idea, right?
I'm just going to do a quick little interjection here. Lisa was talking about how she does some work with like an online app. And I bet, Lisa, you'd be able to explain this much better than I would. But I was saying, oh, yeah, there are a couple of activities that we have that I could really see as very easy to do, like on the screen, having these types of matching. And I like this type of activity. And I can say that because it's Margie's, where you have, different possibilities, like which of these things go with food and which of these things go with health. And so it's like a matching plus type of activity, because sometimes they get a little bit repetitive. But this changes it just enough, I think. And it's really important to be thinking of collocations. Okay, that was my little spiel.
Yeah, and I meant to say, and I think I knew I would do this, and Nicole, you're supposed to slap me around a little bit. Yeah, if you all have other ideas, I mean, I'm just giving you types of exercises like this, and that, you may have other ones that you think of, you want to share with the group, and please, by all means, go ahead, right? I was just, I get in a rut too of the types of activities that I do. So of course, there's always the focusing on prepositions, because these are not, because they're not content words, they're function words, they get lost. And so really kind of giving some conscious time to these kind of, and teaching them and thinking about them as bundles. So different types of, rich in the morning, right? Variety of foods, rules for healthy eating, right? As important as, right? There's all sorts of grammar and vocabulary connection that you can teach with just doing an exercise like this, right?
And again, you could also do something similar with matching, where you have the prepositions and then you decide which one goes with which, or I just wanted to say that for these sentences, I didn't make these sentences up, and Margie didn't make them up either. We got them from the texts. And so if you join us for a CURT meeting in the future, we can show you how to use AntConc. And it's really fast to get these sample sentences. All I did is I said, I put in all my text into the software, and then I said, for, I want to find all the sentences with for, and it just listed them out for me. And from there, I was able to copy and paste them right into here. So it's really nice once you're starting to use the software. You don't have to create the sentences anymore. Yes, AntConc is free. You don't even have to, you download it, but you don't have to sign up for anything. You don't get a bunch of annoying emails afterwards. And the person who designs the software is also very reactive. He's got his email address there. So if you ever encounter any problems with using it, you can send him an email and he will get back to you. But it's a great program, and we'll show you all about it in April.
Okay, and can you go ahead and put that back in the chat, because I think we lost the chat when we went to the rooms. Can you put the AntConc link back in?
I will. I keep going and I'll get it.
Okay, all right. So, this is nothing surprising, but it's just good to remember to, finishing sentences, right? Or rewriting it as a matching exercise if you want, but kind of really giving them more and more passes at these phrases, these engrams. To maintain a good week, children should, and, you can have them in pairs trying to finish the sentences together in writing. You could have one person say the first half of the sentence and make the partner try to finish it. You could write the end of the sentence if you think it's too hard and have the students match the beginning parts of the sentence to the end parts of the sentence. Whatever, right? Just again, and this is just like, how many times can you have them pass at these words, right? Something that I do all the time in my class to kind of help them remember. I mean, I'm doing it with kind of nominalizations and really high level crap, but for lower level students, we're recording this, I keep forgetting. That, you know, you can do something as simple as, and it may not be that simple for the students, but it's an easy exercise to design, right? It's just write 2 sentences about today's reading using at least 2 of these, right? And so you're summarizing the reading, you're making sure that they're using the vocabulary, and it's not like write a whole journal entry or something. It's just write a couple of sentences, right? Right. Use these phrases, use 4 of these phrases, write it. You can do it alone, you can do it together, then you can work together to correct any issues that you might find. You can have them read them aloud, what have you. In the interest of time, I shall plow through. Of course, there's the question, right? Here are just a set of questions that we came up with looking at the language that was in the list, right? And you could do the questions on the wall around the room, and you could have pairs walking around the room and trying to answer the questions, 30 seconds per question or whatever. You could popcorn the questions around the room, right? Just to change it up a little bit so that they're not, you know, it's not just this boring, I'm going to read a question and answer it, you know, but they're still getting those passes at the word, they're reading it, they're hearing it, they're saying it, etc. That's, you know, right.
And if you're still on Zoom, I mean, I love the fact I'm back in the classroom now. And so I'm trying to get everybody up and out of their seats all of the time. But if you are still on Zoom, one of the things you could do with all of those questions is have, you know, all of the students create their own questions, and then they'll write down, type in their, like one person can type in their question in the chat so people are able to see it, and then they ask the question orally, and then they popcorn it to someone in class. So they're not quite sure like who's going to get this question, and then when you answer that question, then you ask yours. And so, you know, if you've got 15 students, you have 15 different questions using the vocabulary that everybody is seeing and hearing. And sorry, I'm not doing well on time. Go, Margie.
Okay. It's okay. It's just there's another thing in a few minutes. Okay, so here, as I told my group, I did in fact cheat and use ChatGPT. I probably put more in there than was absolutely necessary, but it actually, I didn't put all of these words in there. Some of them I just put in like 6 or 7, but it came up with this thing that had all the words because they're the common words, right? You could do a reading passage. We talked in my group about reading it aloud and really focusing on thought groups and how to, you know, marking off thought groups and working on stress and intonation, etc. You could do vocabulary searches. You could have them look for synonymous expressions, like a variety of different types of items and options: nutritious, rich in vitamins, healthy, right? You could do pair or group fill in the blank. You could do a gap fill dictation, right? Write an answer to a short question, right? Whatever, right? And have them try to use the words instead of you're creating the passage, all of those, right? It's super fast activities that, you know. And then of course, here's my super cheat where I went to ChatGPT and I told it to write, I gave it some phrases, some engrams from the list, and I asked it to create, and this is the first draft, I would work on it, right? But I gave them a list of vocabulary. I said, write a role play between a parent and a doctor. The parent is concerned about her child's diet, right? And it came up with this here. And I also did another one about between a mother and a child who didn't want to eat his vegetables. Okay, right. So, you know, there's a lot, if you go through this, you'll see all these phrases are in there again, and you can, and it's a interesting and more natural. And then of course, something a little bit more creative, creating a poster about healthy eating, describing it to the class, or in groups of 3, create a daily log chart to help your child eat a balanced diet, something a little bit more, you know, like the cookbook's a little bit more than this even, but things like that. So there are lots of things that you can do to, you know, to really get, that's our time, but we'll take a few more minutes, right? Anyone want to share anything here? Or are you all just like overwhelmed right now because I did a data dump at the end? Any questions, comments, fears? Thank you.
I installed @conch. I'll play around with it. My guys are much lower level, but I'm inspired to try to introduce a text. And I know that I can adjust the level and whatnot,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I love all of the ideas. I really appreciate you sharing them. It's very inspiring. It's a lot, and I'm going to go through the slides and
Yeah, and the idea is still, right, I know that I still aim high, like I always start getting higher and higher and I have to keep myself and but I think that yeah, you really can. You can just lessen the number of items that you're focusing on as well, right? But you can get, I mean, I was in a very low level class for French. I mean, I spoke no French. And I was doing Je voudrais un rôti de veau avec le petit pois after 10 minutes, right? So, I mean, really, no. I mean, I couldn't put a sentence together, right? So, yeah.
I think it's really inspiring. I love all of the activities, and
Yeah.
I would like to try @conch. I'm excited to give it a go.
Well, you know, if you get some texts that you think that you would use with your classes, then bring them to our next CURT workshop on April 28th, there 24th, there it is. And we can play around with @conch then. So that's the next CURT workshop is April 24th. Please join us if you're interested in more on @conch, where we really get into the software side of things. And then for material writers, our next workshop, Trading Tips and Tools, is March 10th. And if you haven't come to a material writers interest group meeting before, we just bring ideas, things that we're doing in the classroom, kind of similar to what we did today, and talk about how we might adapt them for different levels, different teaching contexts and things. So we would love to see you again.
Join in.
Thank
Okay.
you guys so much.
Thank you so much for sharing all this with us. It was great.
Thank you so much.
You.
And thank you for
workshop.
your ideas, everyone.
Sorry, it was only an hour. It's hard. We had to slam through, but thank you for all your input today.
Thank
See you on the
you.
24th.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
You
Thank
too.
you, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Okay, let me stop this. If I can find there it is. Let me stop the recording.